The night my marriage cracked open didn't start with shouting. It didn't start with plates breaking against walls, or doors slamming, or some dramatic explosion like you see in movies. It started with 8 quiet words. 8 small, sharp, perfectly articulated words that cut straight through the version of reality I'd been clinging to for years. For a moment, I genuinely thought he was joking. Mark had a dry, sarcastic way of teasing sometimes, and I'd learned to laugh even when it wasn't funny. But when I turned toward him, the look on his face told me this wasn't one of those moments. His jaw was tight. His eyes were cold. His voice didn't shake. He meant every syllable. And I just stood there, frozen. It is strange how the body reacts before the mind does. My fingers tingled. My throat tightened. A faint ringing started in my ears, like my brain couldn't process that the person who used to kiss my forehead and tell me I was his lucky charm was now calling me a parasite. I opened my mouth to respond, but nothing came out. Mark didn't wait. He never waited. He stepped closer, invading the space he used to hold me in. You think life is just shopping? Spending? Decorating? You think the world runs on scented candles and napkin colors? He scoffed. Try earning something for once. And then he said the sentence that would set the entire disaster into motion. He said it the way a parent scolds a reckless child. The way a boss humiliates an intern. Not the way a husband speaks to his wife. I should be said something. I should be pushed back. But all I managed was a soft, stupid, "Mark, I am trying." Trying? He laughed. It wasn't even a laugh, just an exhale coated in contempt. "No, Sarah. Trying is what I do. I work 60 hours a week while you what? Rearrange throw pillows? Spend money that I earn?" And that was the moment. That sharp turn in his tone. That shift in his posture. That unexplainable calm that replaced the old frustration he usually had. This wasn't anger. This wasn't a fight. This was the opening monologue of a performance he had carefully rehearsed. I know that now. Because what Mark wanted wasn't an apology. He wanted an audience. He began pacing the room, hands waving dramatically, like some lecturer delivering a grand revelation. "My boss, Jonathan, is coming over. His wife too. And our friends. A big dinner, important people. And guess what? You will host. You will cook. You will serve everyone. Alone. Every drink. Every dish. Every plate." He turned to me with a twisted smile. "You're always spending. Let me show you what real work feels like." That S, when I finally blinked, the shock cracked, and confusion poured in. "What are you talking about? I host every party we have." "No," he said, raising a finger. "You plan them. You buy things. You decorate. But now, you're going to get your hands dirty. No caterer. No help. No shortcuts. Just you." Then, leaning down to my face, he added, "Let us see how grateful you feel afterward." I wish I could say I screamed back. I wish I could say I held my ground. But trauma doesn't always happen in explosions. Sometimes it happens in silence. And I was silent. Because his words weren't coming out of nowhere. They were the final step in a long, slow transformation. A descent that started years before. Before the spreadsheets, before the receipts, before the accusations. Even before the move. Before everything blurred together into one suffocating truth. I had slowly, unknowingly, become a woman living on someone else's approval, and he knew it. Let me tell you something important. Abusive men don't start abusive. They start magnetic. They start admirable. They start irresistible. Mark had been all of that. When we met, he was charming in a way most people only pretend to be. He remembered tiny details. He listened with real intensity. He told me he admired my creativity. He'd say things like, "When I build my empire, I want you right there with me." It felt like partnership, like destiny, like I'd found someone who saw my value. But little by little, the tone changed. It began with advice, then suggestions, then, maybe you shouldn't waste your talent at that agency. Then, you don't need to work, babe. Let me take care of everything. I thought it was love. I thought it was unity. I thought leaving my job when we moved was temporary. A shared decision. A fresh start. But looking back now, there were signs. Small fractures, tiny warnings. Like that antique desk, the one I found. Negotiated, bought, carried home. The one he bragged to his friends about as if he had discovered it himself. That was the first crack. But I didn't take it seriously. Why would I? That's what relationships are, right? Compromises, sacrifices, teamwork. I had no idea I was slowly stepping into a cage he was building with compliments, justifications, and trust me speeches. When the spreadsheet came out, the infamous spreadsheet, I still didn't see what was happening. I am good with numbers. I like order. I like structure. So when he said he wanted us to get serious about finances, I thought it was mature. But then I saw the label under my name, not household budget, not shared expenses, not monthly planning, allowance, like a child. I laughed at first. I genuinely thought it was a joke. But the look on his face told me it wasn't tea, and that was the second crack. Soon, the questions started. What is this 1999 for? Did you need another mug? You spent 22 at Starbucks? Who spends 22 at Starbucks? You bought your mom a gift? Why? Every charge was an interrogation. Every purchase needed justification. Every dollar needed approval. And slowly, the psychology kicked in. I stopped buying things. I stopped going out with friends. I started second-guessing every purchase, even groceries. I felt guilty for existing. He praised me when I stayed under budget, like I was a pet who did a trick correctly. But abusive people don't want you financially dependent just for control. They want you emotionally dependent too. And he had achieved it. Piece by piece, word by word, rule by rule. Until the night of the dress, the night he threw the match into the fuel he'd been pouring for years. The dress wasn't expensive. It wasn't extravagant. It was simple, navy blue, elegant, on sale. Perfect for his big gala, the event he said would change the trajectory of his career. I bought it for him, to support him, to stand beside him proudly. And that's what made his reaction so devastating. Because when he looked at that shopping bag, he didn't see a wife trying to make him proud. He saw a threat, a challenge, a reminder that I had taken the smallest step outside the box he had placed me in. And that's why he exploded. That's why he called me a leech. That's why he designed the dinner party lesson. That's why he wanted to watch me serve, suffer, struggle. It wasn't a punishment, it was domination. And as his words echoed around the room that day, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Not fear, not anger. A flicker of awakening. Small, silent, almost invisible. But it was there. And neither of us knew it yet. But that flicker would burn our entire marriage to the ground. The morning of the dinner felt like waking up on the day of an exam you didn't study for, except the exam was my own marriage. And the proctor was a man who enjoyed watching me fail. Mark wasn't angry anymore. That was the most disturbing part. He was calm, almost cheerful. He walked around humming while I stood in the kitchen, staring at groceries I had barely finished unpacking. It was eerie. People think anger is the scariest part of a toxic relationship. It's not. The scariest part is the silence, the calm that comes after someone has decided to punish you. Mark had already given me the list. A 5-course meal, handmade pasta, slow-cooked lamb, 3 sides, appetizers, 2 desserts, and drinks each matched to specific guests. I am not a chef. I am not a caterer. I am one woman with two shaky hands and a heart beating too loud. But I didn't argue, because abuse doesn't always steal your voice. It steals your ability to believe you deserve to speak. The first crack of dawn filtered through the kitchen window, and for a moment I wondered if I should run. Not leave the house, just walk out. Disappear for a few hours. Let him handle the mess he created. But something held me back. Something that had been conditioned into me. Good wives don't walk away. Good wives don't embarrass their husbands. Good wives don't create scenes. And so I began. Chopping. Mixing. Kneading. Boiling. The kitchen turned into a battlefield. The counter filled with ingredients: garlic skins, parsley stems, ribbons of rolled dough. Every step felt like walking on a wire stretched across a canyon. One wrong move, and he would find a reason to call me ungrateful again. Around 10 a.m., Mark walked into the kitchen to check on my progress. I was covered in flour. There was a sauce stain on my sleeve. My hair stuck to my forehead with sweat. And he looked at me the way someone looks at a malfunctioning machine. "You are moving too slowly," he said. "I'm trying." He raised a hand. "Don't start. You have plenty of time. Maybe if you didn't waste money on dresses, you'd have the energy to actually work." He smirked. "Dinner is at 6. Impress them." Then he walked out. No help, no support, just an order. By 2 p.m., the kitchen felt like a furnace. The oven was on. The stove was on. My anxiety was on. The lamb needed basting. The pasta was drying. The bread was rising. The vegetables were marinating. I couldn't keep up. And in the middle of the chaos, something happened that I will never forget. I dropped a bowl. It wasn't big. It wasn't expensive. Just ceramic. But when it shattered, it sounded like my heart did too. I froze, my hands trembling. I waited for him to come in, to yell, to call me careless, wasteful, irrational. But he didn't. The silence was worse, because silence meant he was saving it, saving the humiliation for later, saving the performance for when he had an audience. I cleaned the shards with shaking hands, swallowing tears. By 4 p.m., I had been standing for 7 straight hours. My back felt like it had aged 20 years. My fingers were pruned from washing utensils. My voice was numb from not being used. And that S when Mark walked in again with his boss. Not at 6. Not at 5:30. At 4. 2 hours early. I was sweating, red-faced, in an apron stained with sauce. Mark smiled, proud of what he had done. "Look at her," he said to Jonathan. "Hard at work. She is finally earning her keep today." My jaw tightened. Jonathan's wife, Elise, looked at me with a mix of confusion and pity. "Oh, honey, did you plan all this alone?" I didn't know what to say. I didn't know what I was allowed to say. So I just nodded, forcing a smile. "That's impressive," she said softly. "But you look exhausted." Mark cut in before I could respond. "She spends all day relaxing at home. This is nothing." And there it was. The performance. The humiliation. The erasure of every effort I had ever made. My throat burned. My eyes stung. But I swallowed it. Because crying in front of strangers would only prove him right in his eyes. By the time the other guests arrived, the house looked perfect. The table was set with candles. The lamb was out of the oven. The appetizers were arranged. The drinks were lined up. Only one thing wasn't perfect. Me. My hands were shaking. My legs were weak. My chest felt tight. My smile felt glued on. Mark clapped loudly, getting everyone's attention. "Everyone, dinner is served. My wife has prepared everything herself today. I told her it's time she understands what hard work feels like." Laughter. Actual laughter. Not from everyone, but enough. My cheeks burned. My heart sank. My stomach twisted. I placed the plates in front of each person. one by one, walking back and forth between the kitchen and the dining room like a server in my own home. My home, my life, my dignity reduced to a performance. But something shifted during that dinner. Not in the guests, in me. Because every time I walked past the table, I noticed something marked into Jonathan S. wife, kept glancing at me with concern. Another guest whispered something that made her frown. One of our friends, Michael, looked genuinely uncomfortable. And gradually, the discomfort in the room became palpable. Not because of me, because of him. Mark kept making comments. She finally looks useful today. Let us hope she doesn't burn the dessert. She has already broken one dish. Don't worry, honey. After this, you will appreciate my hard work more. Each sentence was a crack in his facade. Each insult was a spotlight revealing who he truly was. Each dismissive command he threw at me made the room colder. People weren't laughing anymore. They were watching, evaluating, judging. Not me, him. And for the first time in a long time, I saw him through other people's eyes. Arrogant, cruel, insecure, pathetic. It didn't heal me, but it woke something inside me. A quiet, powerful realization. I wasn't the one embarrassing him. He was embarrassing himself. And he was too blinded by ego to see it. As I served dessert, my hands still trembling, Mark leaned back in his chair and said loudly, "You see, this is what happens when a woman spends too much. She forgets how to be a proper wife. I am fixing that." A silence fell. A heavy, suffocating silence. Then Elise spoke. Calm, direct, steady. "I am sorry, Mark. But teaching your wife a lesson is not something to brag about." Her voice cut through the room like a blade. Mark's smile faltered. And that moment, one small moment, changed everything inside me. Because for the first time in a long time, someone saw me. Someone defended me. And suddenly, the cage I had lived in didn't feel as solid anymore. That spark, the spark that started in Chapter 1, grew stronger. It wasn't to rebellion yet. It wasn't to anger yet. It was awareness. The first step to freedom. The night before it all unraveled, I couldn't sleep. There was a heaviness in the air, like the world was holding its breath. Like something was coming for me, and I had no idea what. The kitchen was quiet, the house dark, except for the faint glow of the bathroom light under the door. He was inside. Again. For almost an hour. I thought he was just tired. Or maybe stressed. But the truth was, he wasn't tired. He wasn't stressed. He was choosing how to live his double life without getting caught. But that night, fate decided to speak. Around 11:30 p.m., my phone rang. Unknown number. Normally, I wouldn't pick up. But something in my chest said, "Answer it." I did. A shaky female voice whispered, "Hello, is this his wife?" At first, I froze, because the way she said wife, it sounded like a word she wasn't supposed to say. I swallowed. "Yes, who is this?" There was silence. A long, scared silence. Then she said something that cracked my reality open. "I am sorry I didn't know about you." My legs gave out. I had to hold the counter to stay standing. I whispered, "You didn't know about me? About his marriage?" And she replied, "No. He told me he wasn't married anymore. He said he was divorced. He said you were gone." I felt something heavy inside me shift, a slow, painful realization. This wasn't a small mistake. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was a whole life he built behind my back. The woman, her name was Annika, told me things she shouldn't have known. She knew what time he left for work. She knew the name of his office manager. She knew where he kept his spare watch. She even knew he hated breakfast before 9 a.m. I had to sit down. Because suddenly, all the small things I ignored made sense. Why he refused to go out on Sundays. Why he always said he was exhausted after work. Why he suddenly became protective of his phone. Why he spent hours on calls inside the bathroom, why he smiled at messages he claimed were office jokes, every puzzle piece that never fit, finally snapped together. And the picture it created was a monster I didn't want to recognize. I didn't ask the next question. My mouth refused to say it, but she answered anyway. He told me he wants to take me to meet his family. Family. The word that ripped me open. I whispered, "Family? You mean your family?" She hesitated, then said the sentence I will never forget. "No, the family he has with me." I felt the world tilt. My breathing stopped, and the room spun. It took me a few seconds to understand what she meant, because my brain refused to accept it. He didn't just cheat. He didn't just lie. He had a second family, another life, another home, another world he built while sleeping beside me. I remember looking at the walls of my house, the pictures we hung, the memories we made. Everything felt fake, like I was living in a beautifully decorated prison built out of lies. I don't know why I asked that. Maybe I wanted to understand. Maybe I wanted to see how deep the betrayal went. She said softly, "I do or I did. But if I had known about you, I would never." I cut her off. Because suddenly a wave of guilt hit me. She wasn't the villain. She was a victim too. Just like me. She fell in love with the man he pretended to be, not the man he really was. And for a moment, we both sat in silence. Two strangers connected by the same wound. I heard the click. He finally stepped out. The light behind him casting a long shadow over the living room. His eyes landed on me sitting in the dark, phone shaking in my hand. He knew. He knew the moment he saw my face that everything was over. His voice trembled. "Who are you talking to?" I didn't answer. I just held the phone up so he could hear her breathing on the other side. His entire body stiffened, his face drained of color. And for the first time, he looked scared. Not guilty, not ashamed. Scared. Because the life he carefully stitched together was unraveling right in front of him. He snatched the phone from my hand. "Who is this? Why are you calling my wife?" My wife? The irony. Annika said one last thing before he hung up. "Stop lying. Both of us know the truth now." He panicked, hung up the call, threw the phone on the sofa. "Listen, I can explain." His voice shook. His hands trembled. He looked like a child caught stealing. But I stood up slowly, looked him in the eyes, and said the sentence I never imagined saying to my own husband. "Explain which part? The lies? The cheating? Or the second family?" He opened his mouth, but no words came out. Because lies collapse when truth enters the room. He kept trying, begging, crying, repeating the same line. "It is not what you think." But it was exactly what I thought. And worse. That night I slept in my son's room. My husband sat outside the door until morning. But I didn't cry. Not because I was strong, but because I was empty. Sometimes the heart breaks so much it forgets how to break anymore. The morning after the truth came out, my house didn't feel like my home anymore. Every wall echoed with memories, but every memory suddenly felt poisoned. My husband sat at the edge of the bed with his head in his hands. I watched him quietly, from a distance. He looked small, shattered, like a king who finally realized his throne was built on sand. But broken men can still cause damage, and I was about to learn that the hard way. He tried to speak first. "I never meant to hurt you," a sentence men say only after they get caught. I didn't respond. I just looked at him, not with anger, not with grief, but with a strange, frightening calm. "Answer one thing," I said. "How long?" His lips trembled. "A little over 2 years. 2 years. 2 years of lies. 2 years of pretending. 2 years of sleeping beside me while dreaming of another life." I felt my knees weaken, but I didn't fall. He continued talking fast, like he wanted to throw the truth at me before I walked away. She was just someone I helped at first. She was going through a difficult time. I didn't mean for anything to happen. I tried to end it many times, but I lifted my hand. Stop. You didn't try to end it. You tried to hide it. He froze, because he knew I was right. Men like him don't stop wrong things. They maintain them until they collapse. For an entire hour, he kept begging me not to leave. But here is the ugly truth no one tells you. He wasn't afraid of losing me. He was afraid of losing the comfort I provided. He knew I was the wife who held the house together, paid bills on time, supported his dreams, took care of his parents, held the family like glue. I was his stability, his second self, his social image. And Annika? She was his escape, his fantasy, his ego's playground. Together, we made his life complete. He didn't want either of us to leave. He just wanted us to not know about each other. That is the truth about men who live double lives. They want two worlds, not one. Not because I wanted drama, not because I wanted revenge, but because I wanted closure. I stepped outside onto the balcony and dialed the number. My hands shook, but my voice didn't. She answered immediately, like she was waiting for me. Is he there? She asked softly. No, I said. It is just me. There was a silence so deep I could hear both our heartbeats. I took a breath. Did he tell you about me? Ever? No, she whispered. He said he was living alone. He said the marriage ended. He said you walked out on him. My throat tightened. I walked out. That's what he told her. As if I abandoned my own family. She continued. I found pictures in his phone the day before yesterday. Pictures of you. With rings. With family. I confronted him and he broke down. That's why I called you last night. I closed my eyes. So she didn't call to ruin me. She called because she was ruined too. Diddy. She whispered. I don't want to fight you. I didn't even know you existed. Her voice cracked. It wasn't fake. It wasn't dramatic. It was the voice of a woman who realized her entire relationship was built on a stolen foundation. I asked quietly, Do you have a child? The world paused. My breathing stopped. She whispered, Yes, I have a daughter. My chest twisted. My vision blurred. He didn't just build another world. He built a future, a legacy, a bloodline. Something inside me broke again, not loudly, but silently, like a bone snapping inside the soul. I hung up the phone. When I walked back inside, I found him on the floor, crying. But his tears didn't shake me anymore. I wasn't his wife at that moment. I wasn't his victim. I wasn't his possession. I was a woman who finally understood. Love does not survive where honesty is absent. Marriage does not survive where loyalty is optional. And trust does not survive where truth is negotiable. He said, I'll fix everything. I'll leave her. Just give me a chance. I looked him in the eyes and asked gently, Would you leave me if she had called first? He lowered his head. Didn't he answer? Because the answer was no. He wasn't choosing me. He was choosing the life that was easier to repair, and I deserved more than being a convenience. I took a deep breath. My voice didn't shake. You didn't just cheat on me. You cheated on the woman who trusted you. You cheated on the daughter you left behind. You cheated on every version of yourself you pretended to be. He broke again. But this time, I didn't feel pity. I wasn't here to cushion his fall. He dug the pit. Now he had to live in it. I walked to the door. He whispered, Where are you going? I turned back one last time. To rebuild myself. Something you didn't think I could do without you. I left the house that morning. Not with anger. Not with revenge. But with dignity. And the thing about dignity is, once a woman finds it, nothing can take it away again. I didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but I knew one thing. My story wasn't ending. His lie was. And sometimes, the most powerful thing a woman can do is simply walk away.